Hey, welcome to 12 Tone. It's been a while since we just looked at a really cool scale, and today I want to talk about one that's fascinated me for years, Harmonic Major. It's a bit of an odd duck, and it's a little tricky to explain how and why it exists, but our story begins with another scale, minor. You see, the minor scale has a problem. We've talked about this before, but basically it's missing a crucial ingredient. Our most common model for how tonality works is based on the existence of what's called a leading tone, which is a note a half step below the root of the key that pulls you back up and drives resolutions. But minor doesn't have that. Its 7th degree is a whole step below the root, so we can't get the right functions out of the scale. We can fix that though with the rather haphazard solution of just raising the 7th. This gives us a scale that's often called harmonic minor because it's like the minor scale but with better harmony, or at least harmony that works better with our favorite systems. But it has a problem of its own. The gap between the 6th and 7th degrees is really big. It's a minor third, or more technically an augmented second, so melodies written in this scale wind up with these unavoidable leaps. Some composers fix that by raising the 6th as well, creating melodic minor, but others didn't really view this as a problem at all. Sure, it's a weird interval, but it gives the scale a really unique sound. Why not just lean into it? And while we're at it, why not try it out in major too? I mean, it doesn't solve any of major's problems, but it sounds cool. And so Harmonic Major was born. Okay, the history's actually a little more complicated than that, but for my purposes as a theorist, that's good enough. Anyway, it wasn't all that popular at the time because, well, it's weird, but it was explored as a concept by theorists and composers like Riemann, Schenker, and Rimsky-Korsakov, who gave it its name. It also comes up sometimes in jazz, which is notoriously adventurous in its harmonic choices. There's another way to look at this scale, though, or actually there's another way to look at scales in general. We've been viewing them in a sort of melodic sense as a series of notes that we can draw chords from, but we can also start from the chords and work backwards. Specifically, we can start with what are called primary triads, the chords that theorists consider most important in defining a scale's overall sound. This includes the 1 chord, obviously, and knowing the quality of that tells us what the 3rd and 5th degrees are. We can keep going up from that 5th, getting to the 7th and the 2nd, and creating the 5 chord. Now we're just missing 2 notes, which we can find by going down from the root to the 6th and the 4th, making the 4 chord. Knowing just the qualities of these 3 chords tells us everything we need to know to determine the entire structure of the scale. And they can be any quality you want: major, minor, augmented, diminished, whatever. This method puts the harmony first, and the actual notes of the scale just kind of fall out. The major scale, for instance, has a major 1 chord, a major 4 chord, and a major 5 chord. That's really all you need to know. The minor scale is similar. It's got 1 minor, 4 minor, and 5 minor. Harmonic minor is a bit more interesting. It's got 1 minor and 4 minor, but it picks up a 5 major instead. In this view, it doesn't really matter that the 6th and 7th degrees are so far apart because they're in completely different chords. They're not supposed to be close anyway, and if we wanted to capture harmonic major like this, we'd need major triads for the 1 and the 5, but a minor triad for the 4. This shows an interesting parallel between our 2 harmonic scales. Each of them is like one of the primary scales, but with one of its chords flipped. There's actually 6 of these in-between scales, including melodic minor from earlier, as well as Dorian and Mixolydian, which we covered in our modes video, and this one, sometimes called Aeolian dominant, which is, well, not that common, but still fun. But back to harmonic major, it's got some pretty wild chords. We saw the 4 minor already, which sounds fine, but once we step away from the primary triads, things get weird. The 2 chord, for instance, is diminished just like we'd see in natural minor, while the 6th chord is augmented like we'd see in, well, not a lot of scales really. The augmented chord is interesting because it's symmetrical, meaning that it's made up of just 1 interval repeated over and over again. It's just major thirds from top to bottom, which makes it hard to tell which note is the actual root of the chord. That makes this 6th chord also function as an alternative 1 chord, letting us choose if we want our scale to sound major and settled or not. But the most exciting chord for me is the 7 because it's my favorite chord of all time, the diminished 7th. This is also symmetrical, made of minor thirds this time, and it's got all sorts of cool properties. Like the augmented triad, it's ambiguous, so you can switch around which note you want to be the root depending on what you're planning to do with it. It can resolve in lots of different ways to lots of different chords, and harmonic major is a really useful tool for smoothing out some of those resolutions. Plus, it's a scale with an augmented triad and a diminished 7th. How cool is that? Well, I think it's cool. Oh, one last thing. Modes. These are basically different scales built out of the same notes, just using a different one as the root, and harmonic major has some really interesting ones. They're kind of like the modes of the major scale, which we covered in a previous video, but each of them has that characteristic augmented second somewhere inside them. For instance, if we start on the 2nd note of harmonic major, we get this, which is like Dorian but with a lowered fifth. This creates a really interesting sound that, between the diminished 1 chord and the augmented flat 5 chord, is ridiculously unstable. Starting on the 3rd instead gets us this, which is like Phrygian with a lowered 4th, but a lowered 4th sounds the same as a major 3rd, so this gives us a scale with 2 different 1 chords, a major one and a minor one. Other modes include this, which is melodic minor with a raised 4th, this, which is Mixolydian with a lowered 2nd, this, which is a really weird scale with raised 2nd, 4th, and 5th degrees, and finally this one, which is the opposite with almost every note lowered. In fact, it's got so many flats that the 7th degree is actually lowered twice, turning it into a major 6th, but it's still the 7th degree. Yeah, names are weird sometimes. Anyway, that's Harmonic Major. I like it because it helps show a lot of interesting things about harmony, even though we just changed one note. In music, every little detail matters, and it's a great illustration of that. It's not the most popular scale or anything, but it has its place, and hey, maybe you'll be the next person to do something cool with it. Or not. Who knows? Either way, thanks for watching. If you want to help make these videos possible, please consider supporting 12 Tone on Patreon or checking out our store. You can also join our mailing list to find out about new episodes, like, share, comment, subscribe, and keep on rockin'.